Methods of reducing crime and delinquency. Introduction. The prospects for reducing crime in the future remain uncertain because we do not as yet know enough about how to prevent people from committing crimes or how to reform them after they do so. Nevertheless, in this study session, you will be exposed to the major approaches or methods that have been advanced to improve the situation. Learning outcomes. After you have studied this study session, you should be able to 1. Present at least 2 major methods of reducing crime and delinquency. 2. Point out ways by which punishment may prevent crime. Delinquency or crime. There are 3 major methods of reducing crime and delinquency, according to Zastrow, 1996. They are 1. Increasing or decreasing sentences. 2. Reforming the correctional system. 3. Preventing crime. 1. Increasing or decreasing sentences. Suggestions to improve the effects of various sentences include shortening the times between arrest, conviction, and punishment, imposing harsher sentences, permanently imprisoning repeat offenders, increasing prosecution of white-collar criminals, creating uniform sentences, decriminalizing victimless offenses, and imposing stricter gun control. For instance, imposing harsher sentences entails longer prison sentences and increased use of capital punishment. However, for repeat offenders of serious crimes, we should just throw the key away. But our courts are in fact heading in this direction by looking up repeaters for longer period of time. For instance, imposing harsher sentences entails longer prison sentences and increased use of capital punishment. However, for repeat offenders of serious crimes, we should just throw away the key. But our courts are in fact heading in this direction by looking up repeaters for longer periods of time. It has been argued that more vigorous arrests, prosecution, and sentencing of white-collar crime and organized crime would lead to increased respect for law by all citizens and would reduce crime. 2. Reforming the correctional system. Perhaps the first step in improving the correctional system is to clarify its confronting objectives, some of which are punitive in nature and others of which are treatment-oriented. When the general public and the public officials are confused about what the primary objective for incarceration should be, prison administrators and inmates will also be confused, making rehabilitation difficult to achieve. However, if the correctional system had rehabilitation as its primary objective, a number of changes would occur. For example, sentencing of wrongdoers is now based primarily on the nature of their past deeds. If a convicted person has previously committed serious felonies, a long incarceration is likely. A reformative approach would instead focus on identifying ways to curb the supervisee's or offender's tendency to break the law. Needed services would then be specified, and the responsibilities of the supervisee would be identified, such as maintaining or securing employment, enrolling in an educational or vocational program, receiving counseling or family therapy, undergoing medical or drug treatment, paying debts, and/or making restitution. Removal from society would generally be used only after the supervisee or offender fails to meet requirements of the supervision plan, for example, restitution, or when the supervisee was a definite threat to society. 3. Preventing crime. Theoretically, there are 4 ways to prevent crime. 1. Make the punishment for violating a law so severe that lawbreakers will be too terrorized to commit crimes. Studies on the use of capital punishment, however, suggest that even this severest penalty does not deter crime. 2. Keep the convicted lawbreakers in prison. Such an approach would be very expensive, especially since practically everyone occasionally commits a crime. 3. Change the economic, social, and political conditions that breed crime. Among the numerous proposals that have been advanced are improved family life, improved educational system to make education an exciting, growth-producing experience for students, improved housing conditions and living conditions in our societies, and curbing alcohol and drug abuse. 4. Educate the general public on how to avoid becoming a victim of crime. Ways by which punishment may prevent crime. Deterrence, incapacitation, reform, and rehabilitation are conventionally regarded as the most likely ways that punishment may prevent crime. However, there are at least 10 ways that punishment could conceivably prevent crime, which we will discuss in this section. 1. Reformation. Punishment conveys a sense of shame and remorse to some offenders, and this promotes subsequent conformity. In the original penitentiary, offenders were placed in solitary confinement to reflect on the evil of their ways and through penitence be reformed. 2. Incapacitation. Offenders cannot commit crimes because the opportunity or ability to do so has been removed or reduced. Imprisonment is considered an incapacitating penalty, and so are some forms of mutilation. 3. Rehabilitation. Rehabilitation alters behavior by non-punitive means so that the individual no longer commits crimes. While not punishment in itself, rehabilitation is often attempted within the context of punishment. Work release and prison education programs are examples. 4. Deterrence. People are scared away from criminal activities by fear of the consequences if they are caught. 5. Surveillance. When people are watched closely or monitored by electronic means, their behavior is made feasible to others. This may prevent some crimes from occurring. Obviously, deterrence may be involved here too. 6. Normative validation. Punishment confirms and reinforces the view that an act is wrong. When a teacher or a judge says, "I'm going to make an example out of you," it reminds the offender and others how they ought to behave and what will happen if they do not. 7. Retribution. Punishing offenders in a just manner may prevent other crimes such as private vengeance or armed vigilantism. The subway vigilante, Bernard Goetz, is a real-life example. He shot 3 young men that he claimed were about to rob him. He blamed his behavior on the inability of society to protect him from criminals. 8. Stigmatization. Punishment marks people as offenders, and the label criminal may stick to them long after the punishment is over. An individual may refrain from crime not because of the punishment itself, but because of the anticipated stigmatization that is associated with it. 9. Normative insulation. People tend to be influenced by those they associate with. If people could somehow escape the influence of criminals, there would be less crime. Parents who keep tight reins on their children may contribute to normative insulation, which children undoubtedly see as a punishment. Also, electronic monitoring of offenders on probation may contribute to normative insulation as well. 10. Habituation. Punishment can lead to the development of habitual behavior that conforms to the law. For example, driving tends to be slower in places where police routinely use speed traps to catch violators. Habituation differs from deterrence because conforming behavior may persist long after enforcement has ended. Study session summary. In this study session, we describe the three main approaches for reducing crime. These include increasing or decreasing sentences, reforming the correctional system, and preventing crime. Current correctional systems throughout the world reflect conflicting objectives. Some components are punishment-oriented, whereas others are treatment-oriented. Generally, the two components, when combined, result in a system that is confusing and ineffective in curbing criminal activity. We also discussed 10 ways by which punishment may prevent crime. These include reformation, incapacitation, rehabilitation, deterrence, surveillance, normative validation, retribution, stigmatization, normative insulation, and habituation. It is believed that out of these ways, deterrence, incapacitation, reform, and rehabilitation are conventionally regarded as the most likely ways that punishment may prevent crime. That ends study session 8 and the entire course, so 107. Thank you for listening.